Good afternoon, everybody. Kevin Crouch here with South Metro Weather. And if you were at the lunch meeting I was at earlier and you heard mention of the tornado watch, I'm sure everybody was getting very excited and interested in what was going on. So let's just kind of go over what is happening right now. There's nothing in our immediate area at this moment. North of us and west of us is where everything is going on. And if you watched the video earlier, you saw me talk about the fact that we have a cold front to our north and the dry line to our west. That's what's kicking off these storms. And for our particular area, it's going to be a little bit interesting to see what gets us first. The storms to the north, which will be slowly but surely moving to the southeast. I'm seeing some people can't hear. Is there an audio issue here, or looks like everything's okay on my end? Yeah, I think it's okay. So I think a couple of folks may just be dealing with maybe some user error issues there. And also I think Facebook, unless you unmute it, sometimes it doesn't work. So you have to kind of manually fix that on your end. But we do have the severe storms to our north, from Bedford on to Plano, McKinney, on up to the Red River there. And then west of us, north of Ballinger, a monster of a storm here. And this is the dry line. But north of us, that is the cold front. So again, it will be interesting to see which of these will get to us first. These storms, if I put this into motion here, let me get the radar. I've got too many things going on with the computer here. So I put this into motion. You can see that these storms are moving to the northeast, but we will eventually start to see that cold front sag southward, pushing this activity to the south. But this storm near Winters and Ballinger, that is moving to the east, and we will see that those storms approaching our area too. Thing is, this storm here is moving about 30 miles per hour, not very fast. So if it makes it to our area, which I assume some of these will, because there is, and you can step outside and know immediately, there is plenty of humidity and instability and frankly storm food, as I call it, out there to feed these storms as they move in. So there's not going to be a cap or anything that's going to be able to stop these. This is going to be a pretty sure deal as these storms move in. But again, we're going to have to watch and see which ones get to our area first. As far as timelines are concerned, I mean, it's just 2 o'clock now. I'm thinking it's going to be at least 3, 4 o'clock before we start to see anything in our area. It could be later. Those models earlier today, I think I mentioned that models were starting to kind of push this a little bit later, which is a good thing. I've already had one parent message me asking, should I keep my kids, get them home from school early? I think the way it looks right now, it looks like we will be good to go for school dismissal. I can't rule out a few showers. You see these over in Henderson County here that blow up and just kind of move through. We've already had a few of those here today. I can't rule out a few scattered showers, perhaps a thunderstorm or two, but the severe stuff, the really heavy stuff, I think it's going to be at least a couple of hours here, probably more, before that starts to spread in. Flash flood warning from Denton County on up towards Sherman there, so there are some flooding concerns here. In fact, we'll get over to the different advisories or watches that we have going on, and I am off the screen there. Wow. That's helpful. Okay, there we go. Some magically disappearing act, right? So we have this tornado watch, and man, I'm trying to do too many different things with the, let me see. Oh, I was lining that up. That's why. I'm trying to do too many things at once here. So we have this tornado watch effective until 8 p.m. tonight. So I don't know that it will last that long necessarily, but it is in place until that time and includes all of our core counties, really all of north central Texas here, as far as what we cover here at South Metro. So tornado watch until 8 p.m. This means that supercell thunderstorms capable of producing tornadoes are possible in the red shaded area until 8 o'clock. Does not mean it's happening right now. I've also had some people, when we had our last tornado watch, they said, why is there a tornado watch? I can see clear blue sky, there's no storms here. They issue the watch before the storms get to you. They want to make sure you know what's possible during that period of time. So when the storm is there and you hear about a tornado, that's probably a warning, which means that it's either imminent, meaning could happen at any moment, or it is actively happening. So The watches will be issued ahead of time, right? That's how that works. Now, we also have a flood watch in place. That went into effect at 10 a.m. this morning. That is until 1 a.m. Friday morning. We have more showers and thunderstorms possible tomorrow, so we will have to watch those. Looking like tomorrow might be a lower coverage event than tonight, and not really looking like we're looking at quite the severe weather risk, but we do have a lot of saturated ground already that we are dealing with, so we will be looking at the possibility of some flooding in some places. 1 to 3 inches of rain probable for our area. Some isolated areas, if you happen to get more downpours than other places, we could see isolated totals of closer to 4 to 5 inches of rain. And again, the ground is very well saturated already. We had a few days of a break, so that will help, but we're still looking at fairly saturated ground, and 4 to 5 inches of rain, that's enough to cause some flooding issues, especially if that rain comes fairly quickly. Now, as far as the risk areas here, I do want to go over this very quickly. We are included in an enhanced risk. Now, Matt and I were talking earlier about the fact that they have made this a pretty broad area. They could throw a moderate risk in here. They've been fairly generous at the Storm Prediction Center with those moderate risks this season. I don't think that we have had, there's a question coming up a lot about Hillsborough. We'll get to that here in a moment here. So we do have the enhanced risk. I won't be totally shocked to see a moderate risk issued if the Storm Prediction Center believes that the risk of very large hail that we're looking at does materialize. I think they will be cautious with that overall, but I do think that it is entirely possible that they could do that. So here's where we break down issue by issue, kind of risk by risk here. Tornadoes. There is a low risk of tornadoes. Obviously, we have the tornado watch in place. I don't think it's enough for me to push it into the moderate range. I don't expect this to be a widespread tornado risk today. But as we get those supercell thunderstorms in from the west, I do expect there to be at least some risk of tornadoes. There's a lot of shear in the atmosphere. These storms, many of them will probably be rotating, and we could see a tornado or two from those storms. Damaging winds will be possible, especially with the storms coming from the north. Something that's been interesting is that the NAM model has been really insistent lately that there's going to be a squall line that blows through, and if that's the case, that will increase our wind risk. But you also have these supercell thunderstorms that will send those downbursts and those microbursts where that will send those very sudden strong winds as well. Our highest risk is going to be the hail. That will be our primary concern for today. Could be a very large hail event, unfortunately. Very strong updrafts. There's plenty of lift in the atmosphere, but between the cold front and the dry line, plenty of lift to really supercharge those updrafts, and sometimes that can go back over to the tornado risk as well. And then yes, we do have the risk of flooding. I don't have it in the moderate risk. I kind of went back and forth with myself on this, but I think the fact that we've had a few days for the ground to it's still saturated, but we've had a couple of days, right, for the ground to kind of soak some of that in, but it has been very humid as well, so we could still be looking at a flooding issue, especially if tomorrow turns out to be a higher coverage event. So more on that as we get closer to this evening and tomorrow. And then we will go back to radar here, because I know there's some folks that just jumped in and are wondering where things are. So this is current radar. This is what we're looking at right now at this moment. These are the storms north of us. This is really ahead of the cold front that will slowly but surely make its way south. And you do see that these are severe warrant. And you also notice that there's a curvature to them. These storms are rotating. Now, they may not be rotating well enough to create a tornado threat, but there is a lot of shear in the atmosphere. They've got the lower winds that are coming from the south, and then the upper winds are going to be blowing in from the northeast, and that's where or the northwest rather, so that's where you're getting those shearing winds. That is what motivates that rotation, especially when you start pushing that rotation lower in the storm. That's when you get your tornado risk. So you can get an idea of the fact that we are looking at shearing winds, and I'll say the winds are really from the west here, but as we zoom in to the northern part of the Metroplex, I know we don't usually cover this area, but this is just an example of what we're seeing. There's one curved storm, you see another one, and another one. And then also some of these, you can just kind of see that curvature. Plenty of shear in the atmosphere. That's those shearing winds, those diverging winds that will help to create that rotation. So that is one reason why we had that tornado watch issued. And then again, off to the west towards Ballinger, Winters moving into Coleman here, going to be moving eventually towards Brownwood and Comanche. And of course, it's still a ways away from our area, and it's moving about 30 miles per hour. We could see this storm begin to pick up pace, though, as it continues on, and I'm willing to bet we'll probably see that storm take a right turn, could push that more towards the Hamilton-Gatesville area as it continues on. But there are more storms that we're looking at. This one near Moran, south of Breckenridge, that could also take a right turn, and that would probably put it more towards our area. So we will have to watch these, but the fact that we have these supercell thunderstorms, again, that can factor into your tornado risk there. Also the large hail and damaging wind threats. So overall, it's probably pretty wise of the National Weather Service to have issued that tornado watch. I think it's fair, I think it's well placed, and I think that we should be paying attention to that as we go through the rest of the day. So again, here's our area. Nothing immediate in our area right now. Storms to the north, that's the cold front. Storms to the west ahead of that dry line. Again, I'll be watching to see which gets here first, the supercells from the dry line to our west, or will we see a more solid line of storms move in from the northwest? Either of those brings a risk of severe weather. One of those could factor into whether we have a higher tornado risk or possibly a higher wind risk, but either way, severe weather is possible, and those damaging straight line winds cannot be ignored. You saw what happened in Houston. I don't expect quite that magnitude to happen, but those straight line winds, I mean, you think about 70, 80 mile per hour winds, all of that force being pushed in the same direction, that matters. That can really do something. As far as the timing, again, we're getting close to about 2:15 here, and so that means that we're going to be looking at probably, I would say, at least 4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock, before we really start to see any kind of impact in our area. I've been saying all day that between 3 and 10 o'clock is when we had our best chance. And it's turned out, I guess, that the models, the HR model that's been pushing this stuff later and later, it knew what it was talking about, so it's probably factoring in timing with the cold front and with the dry line. So it does look like closer to 4, 5, 6 o'clock probably before things are moving into our area. As with any event, that is all dynamic, that is all subject to change. So we could see changes in terms of what to expect and when. I'm waiting to see this activity start to proceed southeastward. That's when we'll start to see the front making its way south. Unfortunately, though, we will see that front stall across our area. I don't think it has quite stalled yet. I need to look into that, but we will see that stall, and that we will see that be a focus for storms tomorrow as the disturbance moves through as well. Looks like most of that is going to be north of us, but again, we'll get to tomorrow once we get through later today. So, just as a recap, we do have a tornado watch effective until 8 p.m. We have a flood watch effective until early Friday morning. That covers both today and tomorrow's rain as well. We have storms to the north and storms to the west, and we will be watching to see whether the storms ahead of the cold front or the storms ahead of the dry line may get here first. But it looks like our best chance for storms is going to be a little bit later than we thought. Originally, I said 3 to 10 p.m. I'm thinking now probably 4 or 5 o'clock until 10 p.m. is going to be our best chance for storms, and I will continue to monitor all of this as we go through the evening here. So the good news is it looks like release time at schools does look like we're in a better position to get the kids out of there, get the kids home without any kind of interference from these storms. As I mentioned earlier, I can't rule out a passing shower. Again, just like what you're seeing here in East Texas, I think that we could still see a few of those. I mean, you're not going to have a day with dew points in the upper 70s. Right now, looks like mid to upper 70s for those dew points. But you're not going to see that with a little bit of lift and not see a few showers and thunderstorms in the process. But the severe weather should hold off until the evening hours. So I want to jump in the comments here, and not that that's ever a good idea, but I want to make sure I answer any questions here. I've probably answered most of those. I know there was someone that posted several times, is Hillsborough good through 4 o'clock? And I think we've covered that. The audio issues were fine. Anyone know if the senior parade is canceled? I'm not sure where they're referring to, but I'm sure someone does. So hopefully that question was answered there. And let me just continue to, let's see, I don't see anything that hasn't been addressed at this point. Yeah, I think we've pretty well answered everything. As always, we will bring more updates to you in the coming hours as we watch these storms make their way our direction. Again, right now, the only real big concern at this point as far as our area, I think, is going to be these two storms. The one south of Breckenridge, this is not severe at this time, and that very intense storm moving towards the Brownwood area, again, it's moving about 30 miles per hour. So we're talking 6 o'clock or so before it even gets into our area. Will it make it that far? Possibly, but the cold front could catch up and move through before that. So stay tuned to South Metro weather over the next several hours. I will continue to bring updates to you as these storms get closer. The tornado watch until 8 p.m., flood watch until early Friday morning. More updates are to come, and yeah, be prepared for storms. Again, I know there's a lot of people just jumping in. As far as arrival time, I think we're looking at probably 4, 5, 6 o'clock period of time when we will start to see storms. Could be a little later, but probably around, again, that late afternoon, early evening period for storms in our area. More updates to come.